Dev Show. Today we've got a nice big group and a couple interesting topics that we came up with right before the show, largely thanks to Yora. Thank you, Yora. So we got Andrew, Yori, Powell, and Greg here. We're going to be talking about some of the updated stuff that's been going on in 2025, the things that were reported on in this gaming report, a little bit about some procedural generation, and if we have some time, we'll get into a couple other interesting game dev topics. Before we go, before we get started, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and say hello in chat. And if you got any questions, make sure to drop those there. We'll try to answer them along the way. So welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming back again. I think we're going to stick to a time similar to this going forward.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
So go ahead, Yori.
Yeah, so before the show started, we actually went through a lot of topics and we weren't sure which one to pick. And then Powell did us a very interesting thing where he decided to remind us that Unity has very big reports about what is going on within gaming trends. And we are finding so many things to dig into right now just by looking at it. But beyond that, Andrew, you had an amazing experience with trying to do some vibe coding and generating a brick builder. Which,
you know that Beach Boys song "Good Vibrations"? Why is it just me? This is a game dev, not the. There we go.
Own it.
Oh, I'm still pretty big. I'm big here. No, the vibe coding. It was not good vibrations. It was vibrations. I vibed with the AI. So earlier in the week, I had learned about vibe coding, reading it somewhere, and I thought that sounds dumb. It sounded to me, now don't be offended, those of you who love it. It sounded to me like, okay, you're just having fun, but you're not gonna, you're not. The difference between coding and programming is, I guess you're getting the AI to write something and maybe it'll work out. Maybe you can flip it to make some money real quick, but then, probably not. And then I was like, okay, but let me try it. And so the other night I said, ChatGPT, connect to Writer, because it can do that now. I'm like, well, that's enough to vibe code. And I said, what should I build? And so I decided to make a little tool that creates blocks. I call them learning and educational game objects. And they've got little pips on them and you can connect them together and stuff. And I got the AI to do it all. I didn't touch the code at all. I just went back and forth with the AI and got to make, now I can procedurally generate any number of these little blocks that theoretically can connect together. They've got little flanges on the bottom as an option. You can customize the size, the scale of everything.
And you have no idea how the code works, though?
I literally have not looked at it. Like, I purposely didn't really look at it beyond like, if there's an error, I'm like, well, there's an error here. But I let the AI do the rest. There were a couple times where I was annoyed because the AI stopped connecting to the code, and all of a sudden it wouldn't do it. And the advanced AI on ChatGPT was literally posting the message it was supposed to be using in its backend to talk to Writer. So that was annoying too. So I had to use the less good AI.
We've got to use Justin's system. We'll have him on next week, and he can run you through his whole system that Unity MCP set up, where he's got it completely running as a full-on vibe. I think it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I think Yori is going to love the code.
I have a document.
I would say make Terraria too. Just say, hey, give it Terraria and say, hey, make version 2 and make it like 10 times better and twice as fun.
In 3D.
Yeah, sure. Let me just press that release button and also, just make game.
Well, make sure you got to tell it to localize first.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just do a release without telling it to localize.
To at least 1,000 languages.
So I do have a very quick question, though, before you get into all the details of how you actually vibe coded with it. Did you do it in your main project, or did you make a separate project for it? Because you said you gave it access to your context.
I used my main project. No, I used a brand new project. It had no Infinity PBR stuff in it because I wanted to be completely clean. It was just a brand new project that had nothing in it.
Okay, second follow-up question. Did you do it in editor time or did you do it in runtime? Or did you not specify for the...
I specified that, currently it's editor time, but I specified that it should be able to be done in runtime as well. So I think it would work at runtime. There's no reason why it wouldn't. I just haven't tried it.
So, and you asked it to basically generate meshes for you. Did you specifically say to generate meshes?
Yeah, I said meshes. I explained why I wanted. I even gave it guidance being like, okay, I need an editor script. So I think we need a scriptable object to hold the global settings. We need another scriptable object to hold the list of objects I want to create. I need another class to do this. I need an editor class.
You gave it all kinds of information on how to build stuff.
Oh yeah, I let it. I gave it some direction. I'm a manager here.
Now, did you start with a big giant, initial prompt, to give you like the whole works, or did you do lots of little small iterative prompts?
Let me let's see. I'm pretty sure it was small. Let me see if I can easily go back to the beginning of the chat, because it's been quite a bit. It might take me a bit to scroll, but no, I think I'm pretty sure I just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Can you do that for me? And it was very enthusiastic. Okay, do that for me.
What?
Oh my God. The current version, I don't know if it's my settings, but it was so enthusiastic.
Maybe somebody got in there and customized it for you. It's like, tell Andrew you love everything he does.
Yeah, here we go. I'll show you. Let me just share with you let me figure out how to share my screen here. Share screen, allow, and then which screen is it? It's ChatGPT window. There we go. This one. All right. Can you bring that up? Now, I want to be clear here. The term I'm using, the name of this is Learning and Educational Game Objects. I shortened it just because that's a mouthful. So whenever you see this Brickmaker stuff, that's Learning and Educational Game Objects. That's all it is. It's nothing else. So this is why I said, and then it gave me all this back. And it keeps telling me to use this, but then it messes up on the vibing. So if you all can read that, I was just basically, I wanted to be able to type in the size and a brick would be created. I would love to get some smoothing done, either smoothing groups. It failed at that, or some sort of like automated normal map creation. It can't do that, I don't think. Uri probably has thoughts on that one. And then, but I thought it could. So there's that.
There is an interesting thing here where you're using the terms as you know them, but they are called differently in every single software and game engine.
Yeah.
And the idea of smoothing groups actually doesn't exist in Unity because there is no grouping for the vertices. A single vertex only has basically its own point, and then the faces exist either as a singular mesh or separate mesh surfaces. So if they are not sharing a vertex, they will not have shared normal they can use. Specifically, that's how you get the smooth objects versus the sharp objects. Mm-hmm. You can also see that in Unity's performance panel when you're looking at the game view. You will see how many vertices you have. And if you ever try to make a test where you removed literally everything and just included a single cube, you will see that it actually has 24 vertices instead of the 8 that you expect for the points, because every single face has the full 4 vertices because they are separate faces, and that's how you get the sharp edges. Mm-hmm. Now, in Blender, you'll still only have 8 vertices, but the exporting process and then the importing process in Unity will actually separate it out if it was marked sharp. If you were to make it smooth using the smoothing groups, as you mentioned, then you will get the 8 vertices cube and it will look entirely smooth because it no longer has multiple normal directions. Like, it literally only has one normal per vertex. So that's where that happens. I wonder how the AI actually handles that when it's trying to interpret the details of your request, because it could start writing Blender code for you.
Yeah, it would use smoothing groups. It was attempting to do multiple vertices and all that. It just wasn't doing it well because the end result just didn't look right. And we were supposed to be able to choose how, smooth it looked, and it wasn't working. So I reverted to it. Oh, by the way, when one vibe codes, it's nice whenever you find you're at a place where things are working, save it, because the AI can't go back very easily. Sometimes it can, but it doesn't always go back.
Now, did you say you connected your IDE to ChatGPT, and did you prompt it in your IDE and then apply the changes directly, or did you do it in a browser and copy and paste?
I would try to get to do it directly. Every once in a while, it wouldn't work, so I would just copy paste if it was a small amount of stuff, or I would just prompt it over and over to say, hey, please do this for me. Like, it's your job. Get with the program. You are the program. And sometimes it would just have errors or say, I can't do that right now for whatever reason. It was frustrating when that happened because the whole point was to not. But I've got a new document from somebody at work on how to integrate Git Copilot direct in this way directly into Rider, to where it is just one window and just does stuff. So I'll see how that works.
Have you checked out Justin's Unity MCP thing yet? You should switch to that, because I think that's much more in the vibe coding. I will pull it up. I had it ready from before, but I will grab it and send it and share it with everybody, because I think it would be interesting. I mean,
I can put a little bow on this by saying I'm intrigued by the idea of it. I like the idea of this for very small things. I think though, for if I were to go forward and make a product called the Learning Educational Game Object Brick Builder, then I would definitely need to understand the code fully, and I would go through and replace stuff with my own look and feel, and I'd have to refactor it, because I from the glances, the methods are really long. They can make it could be refactored quite substantially. So
yeah, this is the package. I linked it there. He'll be on next week and we can talk all the way through it though, and get into the details of it. You can explain exactly how to use it and what you've done wrong with it. But I think it's certainly interesting. Like you said, not something I would be using in production right now, but I am looking at a bunch of other AI stuff for production. So I think I'd like to have a fully focused episode on that really soon as well. Or just talk about what AI stuff we're actually doing in production and how that's working out, what's working, what's not working. Also, there was a question earlier about Story. I have not seen or heard from him in a little while. I don't know. Anybody know if he's maybe going to show up again soon?
He's rather busy off late. We managed to catch up and talk for like 3 hours last week, actually. So
not that busy.
Nice. No, he's busy.
3 hours.
We scheduled it and we had some nice time talking, catching up.
I briefly saw him on Wednesday during a game dev meetup group, but then I had to leave, so I never actually said hi to him. I just saw him.
Oh. Well, I'm hoping to talk to him again soon. And Dave. Dave ran the Unity meetup down here in LA recently. It was great. And there's another one they're getting going again every month. So excited to be kind of returning to those. Got a couple other people that I talked to at GDC that are going to start showing up as well. So I think those in-person meetups are going to be really nice. And I'm really hoping Andrew can make online GDCs happen.
I chatted with Jason briefly on March 12th.
I can't either.
Sorry. I said I chatted with Jason Story briefly on March 12th on Discord.
There you go. So he's around.
Nothing too exciting going on.
That's because he's not joining the stream. That would be exciting for him.
I'd like to have him there, or just do something online again. Maybe we can set something up. It'd be fun. I don't know. Maybe we'll do another game.
I need to start live streaming again, so he randomly sees what I'm doing and feels the urge to say, "Whoa, hold up."
I agree. That is actually probably the best way to draw them out, and then we can do some meetups. We can get some going again. I know a couple of us, like Andrew, were in some online ones before. We meet relatively regularly. I think it'd be nice to get some more of those going. Anyway, I'll shut up about all our other stuff. You want to get into one of the topics that applies to everybody who doesn't care about meetups, the report and the stuff that was coming up earlier. There was a lot of discussion about this before the show.
Yeah, so basically, this is an article that covers the trends that were happening. There's a public blog post on Unity's site for it, and then if you scroll down to the very bottom, there's an actual link to the full report. You can go for either just the quick conclusions, but there are more interesting details here with some charts that we are considered concerned that they may be a bit biased, depending on the definition and the reporting nature of them. Some of these things don't really match with what I am seeing in the industry, but I'm actually extremely curious about what you all think about them. So let me open it up again on my end. I lost the tab.
Pal, you brought this up first. Did you have strong opinions on any one of these things? I will say that first off, like number one is definitely true. I've seen cost cuttings kind of all around the boards at companies for game dev stuff. I've got dogs going insane, so I'll let Powell jump in and go stop these dogs.
Yeah, if like to read it twice, it's for some things are obvious, yeah. And right now we are on the downhill from the devs. Still, unfortunately, there were still many layoffs. Devs are reducing costs, but some games are going better right now. Yeah, we had few good releases last days, but mostly this report looks from Unity side and Unity type of developers. So for me, the most interesting things were, I think, the topic, the one that we talked with Uri, so the multiplayer things, and devs are looking to tech to keep the project up. So looking what the AI things devs are looking and lay off ops. Things that I don't fully appreciate, but I know most devs are looking to them quite strongly.
Yeah, if you want to go in order, we can, because there are still some interesting things in 1.1.
Yeah,
and we can probably talk about that.
We can go back up. Sorry, it was people trying to sell me slower internet.
Yeah, so just to say this, for those who aren't watching, trend number one is listed as devs are managing risk by reducing costs. And then there's a chart that's explaining the types of cost reductions that are going on, such as avoiding overhiring, refusing debt, staying small, publisher support, and then efficiency tools is the biggest one with 45% of the report. And there's also monetization and live ops. That's how they mitigate the risk of the project. There is
I think that efficiency tools one is a lot of people, but probably a really small percentage of the actual savings. So that's because everybody tries to do that.
So there is a thing here to be said, which is as AI is getting popular, those who are doing the DevOps and the tool creation are actually capable of making things to speed up their own workflows that they weren't able to do before because of the lack of knowledge and the entire separate scale. This is why Dave has an entire channel just about how to make better tools for yourself. It's literally something that most of the, at least from what I see, Unity community doesn't even know how to begin interacting with, and AI just simply offering it and immediately able to generate it even to a medium developer level is quite significant for these people. So this is one thing that I think is impacting the popularity of efficiency tools right now. Second to that is it's possible that these are counted also for external tools that are now available, such as using AI at all.
I would assume the same.
Yeah, or texture generators, whatever other professional tool you have that these days are adding more and more. Do this thing quickly, enhancers, texture generators, and so on. I think that as far as efficiency goes, these are rather massive, and they've gotten easier to make. For example, with Unity, shader graph has new functionality to let you make like UI shaders, and there's the sample packages. And with custom HLSL nodes, if you don't have something that's already available in shader graph, you can literally just plop into any AI, request the thing, get a node for it, and then you can continue developing with that, instead of having to learn the entirety of shader programming and what the heck is a uniform. And I'm not bringing up shaders at all because we talked about it for another topic that you may want to bring up, Jason.
Yeah, I feel like with the tools, it's always been a big thing, though. Like every company I've ever been at, optimizing and kind of automating stuff has been huge. Actually literally had a discussion about this about 2 hours ago about optimizing some tooling that we've got for creating stuff for a game and simplifying it down from an hour of manual stuff to one click. And I think that's always a big one. But I also think on these other ones, I feel like there's been a lot of push too. Like there's been a lot of minimal hiring and reducing the over hiring. And when I said there was a lot of over hiring, I think the last 3 years, there was this whole giant push of like, we'll hire anybody and we'll pay anybody whatever we can. I was telling my kids, 3 years ago, like now is the perfect job market. You can get any job with no experience and get overpaid to do pretty much nothing. And I feel like that has completely gone away. So now that's a big strategy. People are trying to only hire when they actually need stuff. And I think that kind of goes along with the whole staying small. I also see a lot of outsourcing and contract stuff too with people right now because they're a little bit worried about making long-term commitments because of the way everything's been. They want to just be a little bit more careful. I don't see that called out here at all, but I don't think people like to admit when they
not just
outsource
outsourcing, but even just globally, hiring people globally. We're adding employees at our company from all around the world, South America, Europe. And as far as I know, they're permanent full-time employees.
Well, they're probably contract employees through another subsidiary in another country.
It's possible.
There's another thing that's worth bringing up here. A lot of developers are trying to go down to like zero input efficiency tools like validators and stuff of that sort. There was actually a recently uploaded talk on Unreal's main channel where there was a small company that basically shared all the tools that they have, including commandlets, so that whenever somebody shares an asset on their server, the asset gets processed for anything invalid, generates some variants of itself, and so on and so forth. So it's not just in Unity that we see this kind of thing getting more and more viral across developers.
Well, let's go on to 1.2. So devs expanding their game's endurance and reach. This is just people trying to maximize existing games, it says?
Yeah. So this is mostly seen on mobile, that most of the games these days that have success are older than, I think, 3 years or even 5 years old. So rather than bringing new games, they are just adding new stuff to the ones they have.
And there is a certain logic to that, where a game that already exists usually has an audience and a willing repeating audience if they see improvements on things that they didn't like getting iterated on. Whereas trying to gather a new audience right now with so many games releasing is actually rather difficult. If you don't know something, you may not bother to begin interacting with it. And if you are trying to make a new idea within the same genre, the 10% shown here, it's actually going to be rather cannibalizing to your own audience, especially if it's a game that you're meant to have recurring spending in, which is something that a lot of games, specifically on mobile, will do.
You see it in console too. I mean, you got Madden and Call of Duty. They just keep re-releasing new versions of it.
Or you can look at Sims, you can look like Europa Universalis, Crusader Kings, lots and lots of things all around.
Yeah, But those are games where you don't have as much recurring spending. Instead, it's a capitalize on the same game because they're making DLCs for the game rather than making a new game in the same genre that they usually keep for like a long period of time.
Yeah, but that's maximizing existing game, yeah. Adding DLC after DLC.
Yeah, I know one of the things we do for maximizing the existing stuff too is just constant live ops events with just live content updates that are getting changed out with just a standard content update or some back-end data, really. And just keeping that going. Actually, I had a discussion about doing them weekly now. So there's a new one every single week and just push out a new one that keep it interesting and engaging. Which ends up being a lot, but I think it works out well. So next up, we got 1.3 devs want better tools and learning resources for growth.
I mean,
I don't know what that means.
So specifically, when you're trying to maximize how many players you'll get and how you'll be able to retain them, it's basically the $1 million question: how do you get people to keep paying you and get infinite amount of people to pay you? So there is a request to figure out how to do that quickly. So things like analytics, understanding when your players leave so you can quickly correct that. The idea of how you can get players to buy into your product/game. I am not.
What does this chart mean, though? I don't understand it at all.
So this is what respondents will think field interesting expansion, and then broader player base means reaching more people, more funding options. Yeah, basically. Diverse sales tools means, getting to different storefronts, probably getting different ways you can advertise it. Better tools and learning is straight up just better everything, including understanding where you should push your product for the most part. End-to-end stacks is the one that I feel is like the most practical, but at the same time probably has the least impact here, which is like, sure, you can make things that will your payment processor, etc. That's likely not going to be something that you need to do more with.
How's that? I don't get how these things are going to fuel industry expansion, though, other than a broader player base.
If you,
I probably wouldn't have checked very many of these boxes.
Well, remember that it's not just the game developers who are filling these in. It's anyone who is involved in the Unity project probably at some point gets exposed to this survey. And then I am only speaking from a developer who's not even primarily a Unity developer. So I may be saying wrong things here. I just want to be very clear about that.
I don't know either. 300 respondents. Anybody else have any thoughts on any of these?
So specifically, right now, what I am saying is that a lot of people who are willing to engage in games are finding trouble engaging with the games from fatigue on industry dark practices. I also recently saw some. So let me give some context. I am on the internet a lot, and I read Reddit a lot. And Reddit isn't the best source of information, but sometimes it links to more interesting sources of information than graphs. And I also look for player sentiments regarding new games that come out because I want to know how things are going. I compare that to Steam reviews whenever the game is on Steam. Google is less reliable, so the Google Play Store, whenever a new game comes out on the mobile, I try to compare to that as well. I'm finding vastly different opinions from all sides. It's usually completely inconsistent when I'm looking at the Google Play Store. On Steam, it's a far better story because Steam also does some effort to show you the more thought out reviews and the ones that get upvoted for being serious. So I can actually compare like a nuanced opinion versus possible rage on Reddit. And one of the things that I see is that for some reason, some games are actually screwing up their local pricing and or availability in general, and they just become invalid to certain regions. So one thing that would be useful here is figuring out licensing and or end-to-end tooling for like, we don't have a payment processor for this country, we will just not deal with it. So there could be expansion of an audience if you have the tools here that you didn't previously have. But if you're on Steam, it's covered for you by Steam for the most part. So I'm not entirely sure what is going on there.
That makes sense. It does get ignored a lot. I feel like international distribution.
Yeah, localization as well, by the way. If you don't have like a tool to do localization and you're not reaching like the 4 biggest countries that like the genre of your game, that's a gigantic loss for your team or like years of work.
Oh yeah, I saw. I forget who is. I think it was TJ posted that he localized to some crazy number of languages overnight with AI. Just a couple minutes of running stuff through AI and set it up to localize his entire game. I mean, it was either that or not localized. That seems like pretty good.
Yeah, there are problems with that where I feel like right now the tooling for localization with AI is completely inadequate. I've tried to do like a quick lookup for that. I'm not interested in using that in any professional project, but I was caring about the actual ability of AI to discern proper wording. So, for example, if you have a light weapon, is it a weapon with a light weight or light element? And without providing proper context for your game world, game elements, and preceding sentences within the conversation, it's actually quite terrible at it. So even if it does pick the right words for the language that you're trying to translate to, it will not be able to discern the proper thing. So now you have to add extra data on top of your sentences to say, when I use this word, I actually mean that thing. But you don't know how much of that actually happens outside of your primary language that will get translated wrong. And worst yet, you don't know if you're saying something that may get chosen to be translated into something that's potentially offensive and or distracting from what you were actually trying to convey.
All your base belong to us.
Yeah, it could end up being super popular, right?
Happy accidents, what can I say?
Yeah.
I would be very careful. I would involve humans if you can help it, please.
Yeah, I think for his, he wasn't planning on doing any, and then I was like, oh yeah, I can add this in, and why not? He wasn't even planning on releasing and finishing the game until he found out it was a lot of fun. So on that topic, though, Latin America is apparently huge for games still. It's growing and growing.
Yeah, and India's pretty high on that list, I saw.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The second biggest there, which is interesting. I guess good to localize. And luckily, it's relatively easy to localize for most languages there. It's not that difficult to find people to, at least not where I live. All right, let's continue on. So studios weigh in live update options carefully. It says that there's is this no plans? Yeah. Okay, a little bit of user-generated content, a lot of downloadable content.
Yeah, downloadable content is the one that's like the most consistent because you're basically making a product that like has a defined value scope. And you can pitch that rather easily, and you can gauge how successful it is based on the income. Whereas like seasonal content updates, you can work for an entire season's content's worth, and it's not going to be a popular season. Then you don't have possible metrics for it outside players dropping. And it's also something that's like more in the freemium space rather than a game that you already bought that would get downloadable content. Most people would not be as willing to engage with a free game and then downloadable expansions, at least from what I'm seeing on Steam. I may be entirely wrong on this.
It seems unlikely to me. It seems much more a free game thing.
Yeah. And then the idea of engaging with early access to deliver content, it's basically trying to have 2 launches, as I call it, because you're basically trying to say, I'm going to have 2 actual releases. One is going to be I am either going to get mega popular or nobody's going to notice my fumble and I'm going to get a second chance later.
Yeah.
In practice, it's not something that probably happens as much as people want it to. There are a lot of problems with early access from what I'm saying. But yeah, go ahead, Pavel.
Yeah, but you can have it now even free launches. You can have the demo for the Steam Fest, you can have early access, and then you can have the final launch. You can have three of those.
You can actually have even more, because right now there's the public playtests or private playtests with the invite. You don't get reviews on those, but you're getting basically first impressions, and if people are actively promoting it on social media, you know how popular you're about to get. And there are also bigger games that are doing something that I personally am not vibing with. The idea of a few days of early access as part of buying a more expensive edition of a game, which is something that I still don't know how we ended up with.
You get the collector's edition. It's not a new thing, though. I mean, I remember even in the early 2000s, games giving you early access like by a full week for buying the collector's edition.
Putting morals aside here, there is a certain annoyance that I have here, which is basically this is the you want to stream this fee, because the first person to get to make content that becomes publicly available on social media tends to get a lot more views than those that don't exist yet. So if they're making you pay extra to get a few days, get to play the game and make the content early, you're basically getting an advantage. So they're basically milking out people who want to be able to stream this as a micro cohort, which is I'm not good with.
I always thought of it as like going after the hardcore players that want to be really good.
The hardcore players will buy it and will wait patiently for the release date either way. So I'm not sure it's that audience that gets the extra time.
But I mean, they'll want to get in early. At least when I was younger and cared about winning.
Yeah, but consider that if your game has any level of multiplayer and or you want to share the experience with your friends, if you're all getting to play on the same date, it would be a superior experience versus I am buying the superior version, I am getting to play this early. I either have to wait to play with my friends.
Then you're better than your friends when they come in and you can kick their ass.
Yeah, but you can already get bored and like not play with them, or they will not want to play with you. Either way, it's an entire thing.
Andrew, you like collector's editions? You gonna sell a collector's edition of Trolls?
Unless you want to pay for it.
Yeah, I need one with like actual
food that might go bad, but
or actual gems, like sell it with diamonds. Comes with diamonds and rubies. You know, it's like this is the I don't know, the special one. You can sell it for $1 million. You only got to sell one.
Yeah. Well, this version is now, not only is this version the only first prototype version available, but it also has coffee stains on the corner from, I guess I put it in a bag with probably this coffee thing, and then it spilled a little bit. So this one's super valuable now because the next version is going to be
it's an antique
prototype version 2, and it will have been changed. I like the idea of fruit slices and stuff.
Are NFTs still a thing?
You switch it to fruit snacks.
NFTs are probably still a thing for some people, but not for most people.
So why do you have some?
No, I was just thinking you could just add NFTs to your game.
Yeah,
those could be your collectibles.
Right.
You did remind me something that's actually important to mention. I completely skipped the user-generated content portion of that one chart that we were on. There is something to be said here. I mentioned this in an earlier stream, but Unity recently removed or rather killed off their user-generated content package. That was kind of a sad event, but it was a completely unnecessary package in the end of the day. So I'm not sure what to think about that. I usually think that the developers are better suited to creating their own user-generated content format. The distribution is a gigantic hurdle unless you are on a store that supports it properly, which Steam Workshop exists for. But for other platforms, it's not as easy to do. But then again, on those other platforms, users tend to not make as much user-generated content anyways. It would be rare for you, for example, to have user-generated content in a mobile game because that also goes to younger audiences and has higher scrutiny. So like if somebody says something rude or includes a rude sign in a user-generated level, that's not going to fly as easily on PC platforms, on mobile platforms compared to PC platforms. So the idea that 8.5% of people are actually exploring user-generated content, I would assume it's the easiest types, which is just make your own level and upload it for others to try, get some rewards for it. But I personally think there is a ton of value in user-generated content that goes more in depth. As you know, Terraria has Tmod Loader, and that's currently going gigantic, and we're actually trying to make some pretty awesome things for it in the background. Some
I agree. For most game, or a lot of game types, it's huge, and I didn't understand the UGC platform either, really, because it seemed the same, where you want to build your own depending on what type of game it is, where you're at, and what you're on, and you probably just do it on Steam because it's very, very rare that you need it on anything else, and if you do, you're probably going to need something custom.
There is one problem where if you're offering asymmetrical features in your game for different platforms, they may get upset by it and ask you to add that, but you won't have the means to do so, or they will straight up not allow you to do it. So that's something to consider. For example, if you're making a Steam Workshop support, but then another platform doesn't have a Steam Workshop equivalent, then you don't have a way to distribute the mods. Or worse, if you're trying to make the mod distribution have a primary platform, and then people on another platform want to play with it, now the users have to figure out how to get mods from that one platform to the other platform, which is why third party entirely agnostic from the distribution method sources exist. So Unity tried to be that, saying, hey, you want to make mods on PS5? Here is a place you can put them on, but they gave up on it, I assume either due to lack of adoption or complexity of actually working with it. I did not read too much into the details because it is dead. So,
well, let's go on to the thing that's not dead here. The teams of all sizes building multiplayer games. It does seem that like every game now, or almost all the games are multiplayer. It looks like at least more than half, which is not, it didn't used to be the case. I mean, I feel like it's very quickly switched over, especially with mobile stuff. Everything is now pretty much multiplayer, has some multiplayer mechanic. Although I say everything, and you can see like almost 50% of a lot of them don't. But
why is that? Is that because there's money to be made? Is it because it's a lot easier to do now?
So,
is it because that's what players want?
If we are talking about the Unity tech stacks, it has become easier. Undoubtedly, it has become easier. All the packages are maturing. And on top of that, there is an ease of resources on developing that. You now have the multiplayer center, which is obviously an encouragement, but you also have things like the... I forgot the name of the new multiplayer one. They're calling it in a special way. The one where...
Distributed authority.
Thank you. So distributed authority actually lowers the complexity of trying to develop the game in a way that's feeling good for user experience. And generally, games that you can play with other people and invite other people tend to succeed a lot more by the nature of people's willingness to talk about the game. If it's an experience that you consume on your own, you do not have much to talk to others about unless it is extremely fun or they are trying to interact with you while you are busy with the game. Mm-hmm. If you have the ability to say, hey, come play with me, that's an insane value proposition positively for the game developer. Because now the customer is getting more customers in on it in a more active manner. And in the past, we've seen some games that got like extremely explosive growth by the nature of having unlimited multiplayer with a really good starting few hours and a really easy pick up and go format. Valheim is one of my best examples for this. They generally did something amazing where they made an extremely chunky, good feeling, feedback heavy first few moments of the game, and it looked relatively easy to run. So everybody under the sun basically said, hey, this lets me host with an unlimited amount of players. You don't feel the lag because it's actually client authoritative multiplayer. And most people just feel that the game is good. They don't see it that way. But they're basically inviting all of their friends, and it's a game that takes a long time to complete. And if you don't pay attention to it, the game actually gets significantly slower after the first few hours, so that you will keep playing, supposedly with the friends that you have already brought in, because now everybody's just having a good time playing with one another instead of playing to progress the game. So it's basically what I call the honeymoon wildfire combo, where where you're basically getting players to have a really good time. They want to invite everyone that they know under the sun, and then it spreads like fire, but they will not need anything more than the start of the game to actually keep playing. It becomes like a social experience in itself if it succeeds. And
I think Greg's got to get going, right?
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was fun, y'all. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good time.
We'll see you
Alright,
next
see
time,
ya.
Greg. We have to make sure Greg talk some more next time. You were very quiet this time. We get into some of the stuff and got to get some of those updates. Yeah, I think it's exactly what you are saying. It's the multiplayer games. You drag other people in and you play with friends, and that's what's popular. Kids, and even just most adults. Like if you have friends, you prefer to play with them, and you're way more likely to play with them than you are single players. Yeah, and I mean, there's still, like a good chunk of us that have no friends to play with. So
that makes total sense. The idea that obviously if you got something that requires or can be more fun with more people are more likely to invite their friends, and that's going to increase the social proof. It's going to increase just the organic marketing of it and awareness and discovery. It's a no-brainer.
There's another thing to be said here, which is even though the costs of developing a multiplayer game are rather high and the bugs tend to be rather hellish, specifically for smaller teams developing it, right now there are plentiful of low-effort multiplayer implementations that just straight up help. Like implementing a scoreboard is easier than it's ever been, and just playing a game and saying, oh, that one person did better than you is already enough of a driver for people to keep on playing, and it buys more time that people are busy with the game, exposing other people to the game because they are busy with it and it's seen on the friend list, etc. Discord got like an integration with the overlay and quests. It's something that's keeping on growing, the fruitfulness and with the effort to implement going down. So there is absolutely no reason not to bother doing it, especially when single player games tend to have a higher and higher bar these days. Just from like the production value cost. It's actually covered in another place here in the report. Couch Co-op is still here, by the way, to the one comment that just came up.
Oh, yeah. No, Couch Co-op stuff is great. I still need to set up my retro gun back there so I can do the retro shooter gun and do some stuff on there because it's a lot of fun. I have it set up in the theater right now, and it is popular and the kids like it. Even my wife enjoys playing it, so it's going to be fun to build on. So this is multiplayer features are being integrated across genres. So basically for everything, shooters and battle royales totally makes sense. Adventure stuff. What's the one all the way at the bottom? Sports? How does that?
Yeah.
That's just because there aren't very many sports games, right? This is really just like a number of games.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with.
There is one thing to say here. There are some numbers here that feel wrong. And when you check the line at the top that says game genres used in multiplayer center, which we know is a package on Unity where you're setting up a project and you're picking what thing you're describing your game as, makes a bit more sense. You'll notice that the role-playing or MMO numbers are low and at the same time rather high, because you wouldn't believe that a lot of people are making that many MMOs, and role-playing would probably be more popular, but at the same time adventure is the second highest format, which makes me assume that somebody in the categorization just made people tick adventure and keep on going, and that's why you're seeing more of that instead of something else, because I wouldn't assume that a lot of people are making an adventure game as opposed to something else, at least from what I'm seeing in the development space personal experience.
Yeah, probably not some categorization by there. Is it? Yeah, I think I'm going to skip this one. I don't like that chart. All right, so devs exploring different network setups. This was an interesting one. There was a lot of discussion earlier. Paolo, you had some thoughts on this one, right?
Yeah, we discussed with Yoda what is asymmetrical multiplayer, because at first I think we thought of different definitions than Unity definition. That's if you can scroll a little lower, there's a definition by Unity about no, just below the chart. There's
yeah, I did a zoom and it messed it all up.
2.4.
it's 2-4. Yeah.
Yes. So there's a line here that says 69% said that they're creating asymmetrical multiplayer experiences. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, and at first we thought that asymmetrical, they're mentioning about that players do something totally different than the other players, that it's totally asymmetrical. But the definition that Unity is using is just different objective abilities of gameplay mechanics. So from this definition, any RPG game that has multiplayer is doing asymmetrical multiplayer. Or Counter-Strike is doing
So like
quite
Among
strong.
Us, because some people are bad guys and some people are good guys would count.
Yeah.
Or Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Forget about that. Just defending a base. One side is interacting with the so
Yeah.
If you're on attack versus defense.
Yeah, so-
So anything other than capture the flag, right? Or team deathmatch.
I guess, yeah. And even then, if you have different heroes and not everybody gets access to the same hero in the same match, that's already like a checkbox for that. So the question is, who reported this? How was the selection for saying asymmetrical multiplayer done? Was it self-reporting? Was it a very forgiving definition? Was it a set of questions that led the graph to believe that so many people are doing asymmetrical multiplayer? It just sounds very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what that means.
Yeah, for me also strange is that you have online multiplayer 99% and you have asynchronous multiplayer with which covers with local multiplayer. So you'll make it, so some of them are making local multiplayer that is asynchronous.
I mean,
No, right? Because this would just be the percentage of them that
Yeah.
are doing asynchronous versus. So it means that the majority of them are not doing live real-time multiplayer. 72% are doing.
Yeah, but that
async
would
stuff
cover
where
with
you're sending out
local.
requests
Yeah,
and
because
real-
this.
yeah, well, I mean, so it's possible that they're just saying this game has both this and this. So if you have
Yeah,
scoreboards
maybe
and you
that.
have local multiplayer, yeah.
Oh yeah. I would assume that the local multiplayer games have internet too. They're combined.
I mean, you if you're
But-
playing an 11,
Yeah, that is weird because if you're local internet, how are you asynchronous? Maybe they're counting it like Yorai was saying with the leaderboard type stuff, and that's their version of asynchronous multiplayer. It is very confusing.
Yeah.
These charts are not
Yeah.
very.
it's a lot of
they're
very big imagery and not a lot of stuff that you can glean from, which is why I'm being weirded out by most of this.
Yeah, I guess you have to go to the source. Plus, the sources are really small. Like 300 respondent survey
Yeah.
seems like a relatively small.
Which is to say, people, you should be really vetting what things you're getting your insights from.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say like who those respondents are. Is that like 300 game devs or just?
Don't ignore it, but insightfully understand what you're reading and make sure that you're not overbuying into what you're reading and not completely ignoring it either. Because if there is something to be said about a good cohort of like 300 developers who bothered responding to these surveys, which is from the official Unity team, maybe there is something here of actual value, but you don't have to like be completely blind and say, this is the only source of information I have, I'm only going to act on that. Please make sure to do your own study. And
I had this argument with my son last night, but we were arguing about Egyptian pyramids, so it was loosely related. I don't know if you've seen the news of all the secret bases.
It's all
I have to go check
fake.
it out later.
That's all from mumbo jumbo. Don't listen to people about the pyramid things. It's first old news, and then some weird influencer who's like on the fringes of reality started posting things, and now it's blowing up on the internet.
So you haven't seen it yet. You haven't seen the
No,
scans.
it's not what those people are saying. It's not. It's all.
No.
It's all.
Okay, well, we'll have another episode. We need to have a pyramid episode where I can get my son on and he can tell you all that I'm completely insane.
Well,
and
it's
fun. He just keeps yelling at me that I'm crazy.
but
It could be aliens.
Maybe.
It could be ancient humans. Who
No,
knows?
Jason, look at the image I sent you. I believe in this one.
Okay, what is this one?
Otherworldly.
Let's. Oh, that's what it is, huh?
otherworldly creatures.
Wouldn't surprise me. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised.
So somebody is in the comment is asking, do you guys have any thoughts on Gaia versus Microverse? Long time Gaia user thinking it's time for a change. I have not tried either in years, but I would trust Microverse's developer quite deeply. His insights are quite something worth following if you look in the Unity discussion forums.
I don't really have a preference personally on either. I've played with both of them, but I've never had a scenario where I needed to integrate one into a project where I had a big enough terrain that was using Unity's terrain. I'm curious what everybody else thinks, but I did want to mention that I know the Gaia guys made their own terrain system now too. The Storm one that they just released and announced at GDC, that it's essentially like Unity's terrain. You build it in Gaia, you can build the same thing and then hit a button to turn on their new terrain rendering system, and it's drastically faster with really long, like giant terrain distances. So you probably know a lot more about it than I do.
These days, I would choose. It also talks about budget. Microverse is more pricey. It needs lots of stuff and lots of things that you have to buy. I think the full cost goes to about $1,000 USD if you buy everything. Gaia, even Gaia Pro is a much cheaper solution. But if I would choose for Unity Terrain, I would choose Microverse, especially with all of the tools, the instancing tools. The instancing shaders and tools are amazing with Microverse. But if I were able to go out of Unity Terrain and use Storm, then Gaia. Storm with Gaia, I think right now is better, just because Storm isn't Unity Terrain. And Unity Terrain is the biggest problem that right now with terrain systems in Unity. It's the biggest problem, and Jason, creator of Microverse, talked it multiple times, that the backlog and the things that we have still in Unity Terrain that's from Unity 2.0 is bad. And we can't make anything faster with Unity Terrain because of how it's developed. It should be written long time ago, and looking at the world building tools won't happen in Unity, it won't be changed at all.
Yeah, so just to clarify, you're saying that Microverse is basically using Unity Terrain under the hood. It's basically just an editor for the component, or am I understanding this wrong?
Jason did as much as he could outside of the terrain. But some of the APIs, like the API for putting trees on the terrain, putting grass on terrain, some alpha map things, you have to use the API if you want to use Unity Terrain. And it's badly written. Because it's written, last time it was written 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And some of the parts of it are more than 10 years old. So we have new technology, we have new things.
You're getting me to feel old, because now I'm remembering that 6 years ago was 2019, where we literally got skip domain reload, which was like the newest thing and best thing ever.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this is Microverse, by the way. It's Jason Booth that made it. It is definitely awesome.
Yeah.
So I linked it in chat.
So as of performance, it won't be as big a difference. The Microverse will be a little faster, but Storm will be faster than both Gaia and Microverse because it's using other rendering tool.
Thank you for the insight.
Cool. I'm going to get Adam to come on and talk about Storm and kind of explain some of the differences soon. Was there anything else? Oh, what was this one? So I guess we're getting close on time anyway. So we will share this next topic and then continue on.
Which number are we on? Just because I'm...
Did we skip 2.5 or?
So.
Yes, we did skip it. So let's get through at least the twos.
Yeah.
So 2.5 was that studios want to offer gamers more than just a good fight, and it looks like co-op games and a couple other options are taken off.
Yeah. So basically, they kind of priority devs are prioritizing different experiences right now, and they're trying to basically go for what would be deemed desirable. Ironically, I think this is very biased based on loudest players rather than the ones who are actually going to represent an audience. People who want competitive content tend to be far louder about it than other types of players, the more docile crowd, I would call it.
Yeah. I think you get a benefit with doing competitive games too, that you don't have to add as much content. The content is more around the meta game, and it's not that you don't have to add stuff and balance it well, but it's not a grind of like massive amounts of content like a lot of the single player or the kind of I think combat encounter type things would be, where you have to add a lot of content for the players to go through together to keep them engaged and interested. Competitive games have that kind of long-term one where the amount of content that you add is relatively light. And like at League of Legends, it still has the same fucking map. And it's changed, it's modified a little bit, but you don't have to keep adding a whole bunch of stuff. And when they do add more stuff, none of it is, as big as the main thing anyway.
It's kind of ironic that you're saying it, because they did add Arena recently once again, and they keep making dramatic changes to that. So
yeah, well, they do that, and I mean, like with shooting game FPSs, there's always a couple maps that end up being the most popular maps for like a full decade, and people add more, but it's still the base part that's the most popular.
Yeah.
When it comes down to that meta. Andrew, you got thoughts on this? You've been a little quiet. What kind of games do you like? I feel like you like the combat encounter games more, where you're grouping up and battling things single or multiplayer.
When I play StarCraft, I play against the computer, and I don't play competitively. I don't care about my clicks per minute or anything like that. The games that I get addicted to are going to be the Civ games, although the latest one got rid of my addiction. That actually cured my addiction.
They were able to break it for you.
So I was like, well, that's solved. But that kind of thing. So, I mean, I do love a good, pretty game. So I don't know. I don't have strong thoughts on this. I don't play that many games online on computers.
We got a follow-up question, pal. Do you know if Storm works in VR? I didn't actually ask Adam.
I would assume yes, as it's. Remember one thing: Storm right now is aimed at enterprise level developers.
Oh, they've got an indie setup.
They have, but it's the base client is enterprise level. So
yeah, it's definitely enterprise and not. Yeah,
and it does it work for VR? From what I know, yes, because they are also aiming at the dual twins. Yeah, so industrial and training things also. So VR, of course.
Yeah, we'll get him on here to answer a whole bunch of questions about it. I think it'll be fun. It looks like Bull broke 10,000 ARAMs. That is a lot. I'm probably at like 1 or 2 at most, but I haven't played in a very long time.
Those are okay numbers. You got to pump those numbers up.
Yeah, I played again. Well, this is just ARAM specifically, but I played again like 3 weeks ago. I forgot how toxic and crazy everybody is. It was interesting. I didn't care though. I was just telling them, I was like, "Hey guys, haven't played in 8 years. I don't really remember what this guy does." Still did fine. They were probably pissed off and yelling, but just turn off chat.
Yeah, that's why you have MMR. It just lowers itself after like 10 games, and then you're fine and back to the good old. Doing whatever. Seriously though, you should try Arena in that case. Arena is a far more chill game mode. I have no idea.
Oh, I played it accidentally. That was the first one I played, and I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" I was so confused. I was like, "Zilean is not the right champion for this." I didn't know what I was playing before I picked a champ. Like, all right, he's the one that can like resuscitate your dead dude before they die. But it's two-man teams. It was no longer big group fights.
I mean, that's a lot of value though. Plus 50% more lifetime for your team.
Yeah, but that's only if you're good at timing things and have any idea what's going on. A bunch of new items I hadn't seen. It was fun. Yeah. I started playing it a little bit for fun though. I got a couple friends that play, and I'll play with them.
I
but
could probably go into a Unity tangent about League of Legends in a moment if we need that.
Oh, I might have to. Let's get this last one in 2 real quick. 2.6. We'll save 3s for next week. So the last one was, but any kind of game that might be the next big thing. This is the types of games that people think everybody is going to be playing in the next 10 years, which is interesting because I feel like every 10 years or so it changes. So the ones that are really popular are the ones at the top. I wonder if those are going to be completely different 10 years from now, because battle royales 10 years ago basically were just kind of starting to exist, right? Like there wasn't a much. There was like the couple of H1Z1 that my buddy worked on, Saleem, and then whatever the hell the one was before that, the Arma mod. And what was that game called? The original Arma mod, the first battle royale game. Somebody must know it.
PUBG? No,
the one before PUBG.
I'm not sure.
What was that one called? Andrew, somebody in chat, just let us call it out. I'm sure.
Either way, the genres here are kind of crazy. The idea that you're going to be developing RPGs is like kind of a given. It's a very broad category. You can literally slap it on almost every game ever. Battle Royale is way overinflated. I have no idea how developers keep saying that it's going to be the big thing when 99% of the ones that release are falling flat on their face immediately day one.
Do people play that many? I mean, Fortnite, I feel like kind of skews the vision of people because everybody sees that and a lot of people play that. But do people play a lot of other battle royales? I don't play any because I suck.
The problem with a battle royale is that a battle royale that succeeds means that there are enough matches where 100 players keep dropping in and playing the match. So by definition, the audience is gigantic, and the fan of it, the ones that play battle royale games, tend to only play battle royale games for almost most of their game time. So it's probably influencing what games that want to develop as well, and the people within their sphere of influence probably get skewed into being biased towards it. But it's not a lot of battle royale games, which is the problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those where there's not a lot of like breadth for games. Like if you play a battle royale, you probably don't play a ton. I could be wrong, but if there are other games where people play a big variety of the same genre.
Yeah.
Like RPGs, like people that play RPGs tend to play a big variety of them, or the single player games, any single player platformer type thing. Like they play through a bunch of them. They don't just play one. But
and this keeps going back to what I said earlier, where the idea that you can invite all of your friends to play together is a big one here. Battle Royales got a ton of player engagement literally because everybody can play. If you have a game that has a maximum of 3 players, you can only invite 2 friends. Try to invite a third friend, they may not be able to play with you if everybody wants to play at the same time. So the idea of an infinite party size TM is rather important if you want to maximize growth.
You just trademark that?
I am saying that in a quotation.
No, just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Well, let's save the platforms for the next week because it's going to get loud in here pretty soon, I think, and we'll run out of time. But you said something about a League of Legends rant, so I kind of gotta hear it now. I'm curious.
Yeah, so recently I'm once again flirting with the idea of trying to make a perfect star system that can do no wrong in Unity, specifically that will work in multiplayer. And I am looking to use NGO once again, netcode for game objects. And one of the things that came to mind is how do you manage an item script lifetime such that it gets to add stats dynamically and then use them in equations with conditional applications and write it all in a way that's like very convenient to work with. And I ended up with a situation where I am registering stat IDs in a static register that's flushed out every domain reload. And then I'm creating scriptable object assets that point to the stat ID so they're not necessary, but they are available in editor. Then I have a stat collection. So if I'm defining an item that has like 10 attack damage and 3% critical strike chance, I'm basically able to drag in the stats as scriptable objects, but they're just pointers to the name of the stat in the static register. And I wanted to add icons to that, so I learned the entire thing of how do you actually get an individual icon for every scriptable object instance from a texture. So you don't necessarily have to have it. And I didn't want the texture to actually be on the scriptable object because it would increase the memory footprint of just loading the scriptable object as a resource. So I wanted to make it like as small and granular as possible. Basically, an entire rant. But then I got to the meat of the things, which is how do you actually define an equation that may invoke other equations in a way that's going to let you run everything immediately on the tick correctly in multiplayer without problems, which is a very profound problem because let me just give an example. You've played League, right? Did you play in the era where static Shiv was available? Right, okay. So it is an item that when you attack an enemy, if you have enough energy, the energy gets consumed, the attack creates chain lightning, dealing additional damage to the target and then extra damage to a few nearby targets. Now, to deal damage to a nearby target, it means you need to invoke hitting the target, which means you have to actually have like an event within an event. I didn't want to create a situation where events just randomly call each other immediately on the tick, because that would, you know that it tends to end badly. If not,
it does, but sometimes you have to make sure that it runs before the rest of the thing finishes too. Yeah, it depending on the design of the ability.
So I ended up having like an event queue that plops the first event in, and then it kind of locks itself from starting an event from zero, and then it starts queuing up events. It starts resolving the events, and it adds them in identical order to the stack. So for example, trying to hit something would add it before a check if the thing died event. So you attack and then you check if the thing died. But if you're creating a second attack, it's before anything checks if it died. And then you get a lot of crazy things. And it should be able to accommodate abilities like Nasus's Q, where he gets extra stacks of his primary damage ability if the target dies to that damage ability, which is a thing you have to like figure out a proper wrapping for. And it also lets me interrupt death events with like an ability that would revive the target.
How are you doing that? So the buff on killing somebody with an ability, what's your setup for that? I've seen quite a few different ways to approach it. So I'm curious, like, so for your like your Nasus ability, right? Kill him. If you kill him with the right ability, you get a buff for a certain amount of time. What's your setup for that look like?
So
I think it'd be interesting for people watching.
Yeah, so basically when you start an attack, the attack has to have like flags on it, like is this attack eligible for the buff usage, etc., etc. And one of the things that a buff can do is add new events to the queue. So I add to the end of the queue, did the target die when I use that ability to attack? So I start the event of attacking the target. I have that buff. I know that ability is legible for the getting stacks. So I'm adding an event to the end that says, also give me stacks if the target died, and then everything can.
So it's like a buff that's kind of listening for the trigger to then add itself stacks. So that way you're not adding a buff afterwards. The buff is already there, and then you're incrementing it or leveling
because
it
it's fine to have.
And if you wanted to add a new one,
like that's a
so let's say you wanted to just add a new one, you just basically create on the first call there, just create the buff and then add a stack.
Yeah, so generally speaking, you don't have to have it as a buff, but because I also want to represent it in the UI and it's easy to track state of buffs, it's possible.
I'm thinking maybe you have one that's like a debuff, right? That's, you do a thing and there's a chance of it. We're going to explain maybe how that looks. So you do an attack and there's a chance that it gives a debuff. That debuff shows up on the enemy's got the little icon and the effect for a while. Just explain what that looks like.
So if you have an ability has a script, it tries to hit a target. Once it has a target that it collected, at any given point, you can make an event of add a buff to the target. The target can choose to accept the buff or debuff, whatever it is. And I'm specifically saying that because in some games, some targets can be immune to a certain type of buff at any given point in time, or certain buffs have to stack. So I'm letting the target manage what actually happens when it gets the buff.
You tell it add the buff, and then it says if it's immune.
Yeah, so it's saying if it's immune or if it accepts it. If it accepts it, it's called the event of adding the buff, and then that event is basically related to what kind of game object script contains the buff wants to do. So if it decides that like on 3 stacks it explodes, it will explode if it's 3 stacks. If it's not 3 stacks, add a stack. If it's a buff that has a duration, add it with the fitting duration based on the caster's stats. For example, if you have an ability that's like level 3 and it has a higher duration, you can collect that from the caster at that point in time. Or the script that's actually calling the event is preparing it, and then it's just offering that, and then you don't need information from the caster.
Okay. Interesting. I think it'll be cool to see when you've got it put together too. Yeah. The whole thing. I want to see kind of what it looks like. It sounds pretty similar to a lot of systems I've worked on and seen. I think it'd be cool for everybody else to see.
Netcode for game objects, it's actually throwing a lot of wrenches in how my code works, because I'm trying to make sure that it like properly gets accepted on the other side. And it looks correct, so you hit the target and you still see everything that's happening with the prediction stuff. So that's a whole bundle of hell.
Yes, because you have to then do the check client side too, and then validate it on the server side.
Correct the numbers if it's not happening correctly, and it's NGO, so I don't have perfect prediction and reconciliation. So
yeah, interesting. Cool. Well, I think we're just about running out of time here. Did you have more on the League of Legends stuff though?
I mean, we can talk about anything in League of Legends. It's a big game.
Well, yeah, let's save it for next week then. Or get going, and I had to get back to a couple other things and wrap some stuff up. But next week we'll be back with Justin, and we'll have his MCP set up for vibe coding and see what that's looking like. It seems interesting. Like I said, he's just telling it to make game stuff, and it's doing it all in editor. I feel like it's kind of what Muse was advertised as, and I haven't played with Muse, to be fair, in like 6 months, so maybe they've got similar capabilities in there, but I feel like maybe it's the way that a lot of that functionality is going to go. It might end up being really helpful for beginners too, to just be able to tell the thing when it's built in and you don't have to go set up a bunch of stuff, but be able to say like, hey, I want this, and it adds it. I still feel like it's not as good as just learning it, but I don't know. It'll be an interesting conversation either way. I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got any final words, pal? Andrew, you guys got anything on sale right now?
No.
There is no sale right now, I think, but I have neglected to raise the prices of my characters yet. I need to do that later today.
So Andrew's $20 sale is still live
that's good. Still live for another little bit. I'm going to be slowly raising prices to see if I can find the right price. I think it's the old price is the right price, but I will slowly do it and see what happens.
All right. Well, go check them out. The link is down in the description. You got anything before we go?
I wanted to ask if any of you are going to PAX, actually.
No.
Okay.
Are you?
Maybe.
I'm on a question mark for that right now, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
where is that? That's in Europe, right?
I don't remember the exact location.
Boston one.
Philadelphia. Oh wait, no, it's. Where's the next one?
Good question. Yeah, it was something that was brought up, and I may be interested in going. So I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, Boston and Seattle. Boston, I don't know for sure. Seattle, I might go though. I got a lot of friends who live up there too, and it's enough time that I can plan
the next
for
one is
it.
Boston on May 8th.
Yeah, that's a possibility, but seems unlikely. But the Seattle one is something I could probably swing. Yep. Be interesting. Yeah.
Other than that, remember to check out a lot of games that are coming out, and we have the Switch 2 Nintendo stream coming next week. So that would be.
You mean the new Mario Kart?
Sure. That and a
Yes,
few
yes.
other things. So I'm rather excited for that. Just wanted to remind everybody.
No, I've got a whole family full of Mario Kart addicts, and they've got steering wheels set up and everything else. They just need the new one. Even my 3-year-old loves Mario Kart. She plays every
I'm
day.
actually mostly interested in the innovations. So the idea of repeating Mario Kart games is less of the meat of the event for me.
Yeah, we got when you have an army of kids, it's fun because it's the only game where they can still beat the bots, and I can have a fun challenge at the same time. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Drop a comment down below if you got any topics or questions, things you'd like to talk